Welcome to the first ever episode of the Refine podcast, where we're discussing how the world of R&D tax is changing in the era of AI. I'm your host. My name's Jonny Bender. I've been working in R&D tax for the last 8 years, and I've seen a lot of the friction between innovation and accessing these tax credits. Today, we're sat in San Francisco in the A16Z offices. And I'm joined here with these two brilliant minds that have decided to stop complaining about this issue and start actually building. Welcome.
Thank you very much for having us.
Hello, thanks for hosting.
So first of all, I'd like to address the fact that we're here in the US, West Coast, San Francisco. How did you manage to land that?
Well, the main reason is that we got accepted to the A16Z speedrun program. This is more or less like a YC, so it serves as a springboard for the startups who are early in their stage and wanted to accelerate. So that's pretty much what we're doing here.
You've managed to find a problem that's big enough for VC attention. How did you find this problem?
I'm, as a person, very much about productivity, so it's antithetical for me, like to deal with something that takes lots of my time or done super inefficiently. And unfortunately, R&D tax process didn't change in the past 20 years.
It's like you're back in the 90s. Why is that?
Many of the advisors are still, unfortunately, kind of rely either on the interviewing kind of a bunch of people or by just like pushing completely all of the responsibility and burden of collecting all this information fully to the company by just like sharing a spreadsheet. Please populate everything, and guess what? Nobody knows where to take the data from. That's exactly kind of the process that we had back in Get.
So Maria, when George approached you with this problem, what was it that was screaming, we can solve this problem with AI?
First of all, I was an engineer and an engineering program manager, so I dealt with all the program management and planning across the teams. And what I saw is that while engineers are focused on delivering new things, new features, they get distracted by some of the processes, bureaucratic things that are not moving the needle. So I'm very passionate about solving this problem for engineers. With AI, like we are opening up new capabilities to deal with data. And that's one of the best cases where we can utilize the technology for finding the insights, clustering and structured data.
How did your background help you sort of solve this problem of R&D tax credits?
I'm coming from research background. I studied physics and applied computer science, doing information modeling based on unstructured data for configuration of large facilities in physics, CERN-like accelerators for particles. And the same thing we're seeing here is there is a connection between like one Jira ticket to the GitHub commit which has happened, and then a conversation or Google Doc which was produced by engineers teams. So this unstructured data fits very terribly in all the relational databases. So we need to have a different solution. And I'm bringing this background from my past.
So it's like an information mapping problem. Almost.
Yeah, it's a knowledge base. It's the graph you're trying to build out of all the pieces which are connected and the rules which define how it works together. I think now it's a different set of capabilities that we are having because AI is positioned naturally to deal with semantic unstructured data, so just to capture the meaning of this ticket, of this document, and that's what we are using. So AI is best in finding and dealing with all the volume of data, because no person would be able just to go through and read, all the documents which were produced through 1 year of engineering activity. So dealing with volumes of data as well as using the semantics that LLMs are so good at is why Taxnova is possible right now.
Let's rewind a little bit to that original moment when you realized that the R&D tax credit process is broken.
Imagine the situation, like you are running your own duties, you are maybe engineering manager, product manager, like whoever in the organization, and then at some point kind of somebody from finance asks you to list all of the projects or all of the activities that according to some definition that probably you are not too sure about, like what they mean, kind of comply, and then to describe in the finance details.
Definition of R&D from a taxation perspective.
From a taxman perspective, which is very different from what like a layman person would assume, or definitely what I would assume as well. When you're kind of presented with that task, you immediately are thinking that, well, probably they're kind of just go and crawl all of my Jira, all of my GitHub, all of the everything that like we have done, because that's exactly what I would be doing. But why me as a human being should be doing that like manually and like without much of the assistance, and more kind of necessarily I will be missing some parts. To me, it was very natural that like there must be just like, I don't know, some layer on top that just takes care of all of these things, because the essence of like the whole process is like taking data in one format and presenting it under a different light to the regulator, which is like very much something that, as Mary mentioned, like AI is very good at.
And I think it's this translation problem which is at the core, because engineers are living in development cycle. They are speaking about OKRs, like delivering features, sprints planning. So this is one world, but then you need to have a tax translation of that, which is uncertainties, technical advance, 4-part test. Like, this is not what they can necessarily understand.
It's not how they think naturally about solving problems, right? Yeah.
Yes. So this is like really a broken telephone to translate that.
Interesting.
But I think another facet of this is that this is a retrospective process.
So what you're talking about, that's more of a pain from the engineering perspective,
right?
Because the tax, from a taxation perspective, the language and the requirements are completely alien to how engineers think about their projects, their R&D.
Yeah, I think essentially we are trying to remove that translation layer. So instead of people dealing with this inefficient process and unnecessary step of explaining, translating what I've already done, the work which is delivered and forgotten, this can be just surfaced by AI based on what is in the systems.
A lot of sort of skeptical people, especially AI skeptical people, they would be worried about data security, for example, or are there any other challenges on the sort of data engineering side that you think is very relevant in terms of like adoption rates for this kind of technology?
Yeah, honestly, I think data security is not a number one issue. The other painful and screaming question is always, is my data good enough? Like, that's what we hear from CTOs and CFOs questioning, do we have enough documented so that we can actually make a use of it, and find the insights in the conversations, in the docs, in tickets that already are created in the record system. So it's a great question, and it's right to the point, because relying on data, you need to have it present, like garbage in, garbage out.
Right.
That's fair. On the other hand, we are actually coming from the understanding that fast-paced companies don't have time to document things. They would chat on Slack and go directly implement it in GitHub and ship it in live maybe in one day. So then there is not necessary time to go sit down, plan it out, and only then write a document and go and implement it. So certainly there are things which are not in the records, but that's why we are coming from this picture and philosophy of you need to capture the whole thing, look at the whole realm of company data across Slack, across GitHub, PRs, as well as documents, as well as planning, because it's still happening, right? And take all of that into account, like connect it across the systems and find the insights either here or either there, or connect them together.
And don't take us wrong. We kind of would be foolish to say that like all of the answers are hidden there in the data, and like it's just like data in, kind of the ready report out, just like ready for the submission. There are still certain things or details that will be missing. However, it's completely two different starting points, and it's a completely different question where we are coming back to the let's say Maria as an engineer, and ask her, Maria, okay, we know already that you have been doing a project XYZ, geospatial technology implementation is in something, and then we know that you have been implementing this and that. Kind of what exactly did you try there as the alternative approaches? Could you tell us? And that is a much more humane or kind of respectful way in terms of Maria's time, because in this case she will be able to kind of to zero in on that specific thing, and it will provide us the necessary additional color to present it under the right weight, or maybe under the right light, or maybe to qualify or kind of understand whether it's kind of 100% eligible or not, rather than, again, starting with the blank page.
And I wanted to also touch base on another part of the process, which is timesheets. Wonderful process, loved by everyone in engineering and product, just because interviews is like one side of the picture, but another pain is reconstructing how much of the time and work effort was put into each of the initiatives, each of R&D projects.
And if you don't have the timesheets, then guess what? You're guesstimating, sorry for tautology, kind of what was the split of the time, and then it becomes like, okay, this is like finger in the air 20%, finger in the air 80%, and I mean, that exposes company purely to the kind of inquiry risk. And in our experience, like out of maybe like 20 companies that we are speaking, maybe one at most has implemented the timesheets, and even if they implemented the timesheets, it usually takes them blood, sweat, and tears to ensure that the discipline is there and kind of everybody is actually filling in those timesheets.
But even if you have timesheets, what's the data available, and what's your process that you're marrying to be able to come up with a pragmatic process, which is generally what the authorities are looking for? Is there a reproducible, pragmatic process that you're following? It sounds like data availability, data quality, these are very sort of important problems to think about when you're trying to, well, regardless of whether you're using AI or not, and the sort of need, the demand for real-time tracking. Do you think there's potential for Taxnova and AI to help with this?
Yeah, 100%. I think it's actually a great opportunity because so far there is no single solution which would let you figure out at the right point of time what R&D you did, like what was the work we delivered during this quarter, which qualifies for R&D. And
also if you take a note at the time, are you describing it at a good enough detail? Because you're just like making a note that we did this. But is this going to be useful for filing the R&D tax credit?
You're actually not going to be able to do it in the right time, right? And I think this is one of the core issues with current process, because it's completely retrospective and because it's hard to go back in time and figure out the things. So it's important to capture it in the right time and place. And that's why with Taxnova, we will bring the solution which is always on, which brings the insights and additional questions to capture all the information about the work being done at the right time of the actual development, while it's still fresh in time.
Yeah, and it's also a great benefit for the finance professionals, for the CFOs and head of finance, because right now, as you rightly mentioned, they are flying completely in the dark, and kind of they either have to accrue a certain amount on a quarterly basis based on the past. But I mean, we have seen in practice with many of our clients that past is a bad predictor of the future. Well, true not only in the R&D tax world, but in general probably. But in R&D tax especially, because like sometimes you are in some of the years performing more of the innovative projects, and some others it will be less. Kind of there is a fluctuation coming from the headcount, from the type of the kind of, I don't know, work that people are engaging in. Some other professionals just know about this unreliability, and they do not account for that at all. So for them it will be purely a windfall of money in the end, which of course kind of will be great, but you could not kind of plan anything for the future. And kind of all of the finance professionals, they're all about planning and budgeting.
I just wanted to pivot the conversation towards the opportunity to go global with Taxnova.
Most of the OECD countries, they have some sort of the R&D tax scheme in one shape or another. Of course, they come in all sorts of shapes. So financially, in terms of like the calculations and the benefit itself, they vary greatly. However, kind of all of them, luckily, are based on the more or less unified definition of what is R&D and what is not. And kind of there is a Frascati manual from the 1960s.
Good old Frascati manual.
Yeah, like what the OECD came up with in 1960s. And majority of the legislators in the major jurisdictions, they borrowed the definition of the R&D from there, and that kind of makes the solution like Taxnova possible, because we are connecting to the same JIRA that you will be using in the US as in the UK or in France, if you have the engineers based in all of those hubs, and then kind of as part of one workflow able to identify those projects, which in the end you would be able to include in the respective claim in all of those jurisdictions. And
it's rather a natural transition, because we are working with clients who are starting to ask us, okay, but I have a few engineers here in Portugal, like, can we also do that? As George said, we already have visibility across the Jira, the GitHub. So using that and being able to then just slice it by country and help prepare the claim here in the US, in the UK, in Canada, wherever you have engineers, that actually makes us a one-stop shop to prepare the whole R&D across the global company.
That's great news for international development houses, isn't it?
Yeah, and for distributed teams as well.
We really want to make it seamless for international company to even not ask a question like, is it worth spending my time to prepare and get an R&D tax claim in this country where maybe I have like less presence? We don't want this question to even come up. Just use the benefit that you deserve. Claim what's yours.
I wanted to ask about the relationship between Taxnova and obviously the incumbent existing advisories. So what's the dynamic there? And also I wanted to understand what your ideal client profile is.
The main client here is actually the tech companies. Fast-paced, trying to move forward and not spend the time on any like tax bureaucratic issues. And the mid-sized companies, anywhere from like 20 engineers and above would necessarily have like collaboration tools, project management in place, and that's what we can already leverage. So that's where we see is as our perfect size, going up to enterprise level, as we discussed with like global teams, across the world.
And going back to your first part of the question on the relationship with the advisors,
right.
That's probably one of the biggest challenges that we are trying to overcome right now, is how we are positioning Taxnova, because in more cases more often than not, companies are assuming that we are just like a service provider, that we are tax advisor, but kind of in essence we are a platform, and we are not tax advisor. We are not giving the tax advice. We are powering the whole preparation and helping you to identify kind of all of the pockets of value, regardless of where kind of those people were, and like minimize the burden, maximize the claim itself, and kind of to ensure that it's like the most efficient process ever. However, we are not assuming the role role of the tax advisor. Actually, we think that tax advisors are very knowledgeable and reputable people who should be reviewing the output and like the result of the Taxnova operation, and then provide you the advice in some of the gray areas or depending on kind of some of the nuances on the jurisdiction. Hence, we feel that like the 90% of the heavy lifting, that's something that we definitely could help. However, the last mile of the review, of the submission, of the giving you the advice and sharing the expertise, that's something that actually the advisors shine in, and something that they actually enjoy much more than like just collecting all of these data points and like, I don't know, trying to chase all of those people and run around for good part of the year.
So you're not looking to replace advisors, you are looking to, and you're targeting the actual claimants.
Correct. And even more, actually, we already working, partnering with tax advisors, and they are seeing great benefit for them to accelerate the turnaround of claims, which also means like having the returns done faster, right, and the fees collected sooner. So yeah, there is definitely a value of automating this data collection, which is valued on both sides, and that's why that's the platform like for collaboration between both as well.
So you mentioned value there. It might be worth discussing like where the value comes from. So obviously there's the efficiency gains.
Yeah, so there are three main pieces. First one is we talked about the efficiency of the pain around the unnecessary process and translation. Second one is indeed finding R&D that you forgot about.
Or would just dismiss because it's too small.
And that's because it deserves it requires the interviews today, right? It requires the manual workflow, both on the advisor side as well as the claimant side. While when it's automated, it's much easier. It's a higher ROI, basically.
As a consultant, we'd see that project is only worth 10, 15K. Right. Let's just ignore it.
Right.
It's not worth our time.
Mm-hmm. And there are projects that people would just forget about, right? We want to capture everything, even if our memory is not perfect. LLMs actually thrive in finding it across the board, everywhere we already have it. And that's the second one. And the third value of Taxnova is actually in making the claims even more defendable. And this comes from the fact that it's all based on data. So it's audit-proof, it's traceable, you always have evidence you can come back to. That's where we exactly thrive, and we bring in confidence and defendability regardless of how many years have passed, how many people have left since then, and being able to always prove it to tax authorities.
Just wrapping up now, we're coming to the end of this. One sentence each. What would you like a client CTO to feel after using Taxnova?
I want CTOs to not even notice that it happened. So if CFOs are enabled enough to be able to get everything they want, then there is no need to distract the engineering team, and that's a perfect outcome.
Yeah, and on the CFO side, no project management, nor chasing, nor this task in the to-do list that goes from months to months.
There's a great opportunity here, it sounds like, and people need to get on the Taxnova train. That's been George and Maria, the minds behind Taxnova. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Jonny.